Okay. So today we'll see what is the difference between get and post. Okay, as we have used here, two different methods we have used. Can you see here? I have used get method. Okay, so I'm using or I'm giving this $get for getting the data. Okay, whatever values the user is entering, that value I can get with $get. If I say I am using C, if I am using certain post value, if I'm using the method as post, if I'm using the method as post, right? So I will obtain those values by giving $post. Because which method you're using, the same method I can use and get the values. What is the difference between get and post? The same result could also be achieved using the HTTP get method. Just replace post with get. Let us understand the difference between get and post method. So both these get and post are treated as super globals. Okay. This $_get and $_post. These two values are treated as super globals because I can get the values from these methods, which means that they are always accessible regardless of the scope. What is scope? Now we had seen three types of scopes, right? Local, global, and static. So what do you mean by local? It's only in that particular function. If I say global, I can use that outside the function. But if I want to use inside, outside, wherever I want those functions, those keywords, those values, those variables, then I can make them as super globals. Okay, so these are super global variables. Wherever you want, you can get it. Whichever is your scope, you can access those variables. It can be accessed from any function, class, or file without having to do anything special. So you can use if it is local, if it is global, or if you have any other class or file, you can get the variables accessed. $_get is an array of variables passed via the URL parameter. Okay, this is also an array of variables passed via the HTTP post method. Now here, these two are different here. URL parameters and this is HTTP post. Now what do you mean by URL parameter is, if you can see the screen, can you see this? Right, this is my URL, my location, uniform resource location, right? So my previously also we had seen in JavaScript, get method, what it does, it gets all the data from the form and shows it in the address bar. I'll get all the data, whatever I have entered, I will get it here. So the same thing is here also. I will get, or get method will pass on the values what are there for the variables in the URL parameter. So I can see all my data in the URL. But post, how it does, it hides behind HTTP. It shows me that the data is posted and it is there in this HTTP post method. Okay, this is the first and important difference between get and post. Now, when to use get and when to use post. When to use get, when are you going to use get is information sent from a form with a get method is visible to everyone, right? Because it is shown in the address bar. So all variable names and values are displayed in the URL, right? So my names, if I have a form for login and password and I am giving get method. So what will that get method do? It will take the user ID, it will take the password, and both will be shown in the URL. So my user ID dash, whatever is my user ID, password dash, and my password which I have typed, it would be seen in the URL. It would be displayed in the URL. Okay, so which is not good. Get also has limits on amount of information to send. You cannot send a big amount of data. If I have a form and on that form I am getting a lot of information, right? I'm getting the students' details, students' birth date, students all whatever school detail, college detail, his percentage, okay, everything I'm getting on the form. Then that form cannot be passed on with the get method because get method is having limits. However, because of variables are displayed in the URL, it is possible to bookmark the page. If you want to bookmark the page, you can bookmark with the help of get. This can be useful in some minute minor cases. Okay. If you want to save certain data, save certain displayed information, then you can do that with the help of bookmarking. Next, get may be used for sending non-sensitive data, right? This point is being shown here because the data is seen in the URL. I'm not supposed to send non-sensitive data, right? Get should never be used for sending passwords or other sensitive information because the data is seen, right? Because the data is seen, so I cannot send some sensitive data. Plus, I cannot send certain passwords or certain bank details or my card details. I cannot do that with the help of get method. But when to use post? Information sent from a form via the post method is invisible to everyone, not seen at all. All names, values are embedded within the body of the HTTP request. So this HTTP is having all my data, but it is not seen in my URL. Okay? Post has no limits on the amount of information, whereas get had limits. Get was the data was visible to everyone and it was having certain limits. Moreover, POST supports advanced functionality such as support for multi-part binary input while uploading files to server. Okay, so POST is not having any limit. Plus, it helps me to upload certain files to the servers, whereas GET will not give me the advanced functionality for uploading the files because it is having limits, right? In that limit, he cannot upload the files to the servers, but Post can do. The variables are not displayed in the URL, so it is not possible to bookmark the page, right? I cannot see my variables. Here, I cannot see my variables in the URL, so I cannot bookmark it. But in Get, I used to see the variables and I could bookmark the page for later use. Okay, so you should be knowing what is when I'm using Get and when I'm using Post and what is the difference between Get and Post. Form connectivity with database. Okay, once we have created form, once we gave all the methods, once we have done everything now using events handler, now my page is ready. Fine. Then what am I supposed to do? I'm creating a form. With the help of certain events, I'm creating forms. So form is basically used for getting the user's information, right? So if I am getting user's information, that information has to be stored somewhere. I cannot store it in my temporary memory. No, because if I am storing in my temporary memory, I cannot recollect it. I cannot get that memory back. The data what is being uh, typed by the user, I cannot get that. Why I cannot get it? Because it's a temporary memory. If some other student comes in and he enters his data, so the data which was entered by the previous person is deleted and the new data has been stored. So I cannot get the previous person's data. For that reason, what are we going to do is we are going to create a database. In this database, I'm going to save all the details, all the data of for all the users. Whichever user is entering the details, registering for it, then that particular student's data has to be there with us because he is a registered student. So we can save it in the database. Now, how am I going to save that database? With the help of connectivity. I will connect my PHP page to my database. Okay, and this database, we are going to use it as PostgreSQL, which we had learned in 11th standard. Now ensure you have configured php.ini file before PHP and database connectivity. So this file should be there in your root directory. If this file is there in your root directory, then only you can connect your PHP to the database. Now, for example, create an admission form for the registration of the college student. Student is there and I'm creating a registration form for the student. We have already studied HTML forms created in previous chapters. Yes, we have studied. And database creation in DBMS chapter. Yes, we have did in 11th standard. Now, create college database and create table student with following fields in this PostgreSQL database. Okay, so I am creating one college database, and in that one table will be student. Now write the following code in admission.php file. So this is my admission.php file, and I will be writing the codes. What fields I want, what information I want from the user is from the student is his name and gender. Only these two things I want. So how am I going to create a form? Doc type HTML, head. So I'm using language as English, title home, meta name, meta description tag I get, meta name, viewport, content width, and this device width. If you want that content width to be like device width, you can give that particular width. Okay, initial scale 1, then head, body. In the body section, I'm giving heading 1, student admission form. Then I start my form and I give the method as post. My first thing what I get is my label. Okay, this label is just for me, for the user, for explanation. What first requirement, what first field you need to type. So my first field is first name. Then I'm giving a text box with the name. I give the ID as ID name. So here, if I see ID, that means I have CSS. So max length is 30 and I want it, it's required, it's compulsory. Placeholder, in the placeholder, what is written? Enter your name. Fine. Over with my first field, then break. Second field, I have gender. Label open, label close, I have gender. Then in this gender, what I have, input type equal to radio. So my first element, first my HTML element is my radio button. Gender, ID gender, value, male, and I'm writing this text here. I'm not able to see this male on my page, but I need to mention it, mention the keyword on the other side. Fine. So I have written as male. Then second radio button, I have it for female. And third radio button is for others. Okay. So what do you mean by radio button? I can opt for any one option only. Only one option. You can take any option, but at a time you can have only one option. Then break. Then second, next I have is the submit button. Type submit, name equal to submit, ID equal to submit, value equal to submit. Now this value, what we have written here, I can write it any name. I can say download, I can say click here. Okay, I can give any names to this submit button. Form close, body close, HTML close. Okay. Now we start with our PHP tag. PHP, I have $server name as the variable. In this variable, what am I going to store is PGSPQL, PostgreSQL. Okay, host equal to localhost and DB name equal to college. So what is the database name? College. What is the host name? Who is hosting that particular machine's name? Is localhost. So I have stored the information about the database and my host location. Next, username. Postgres, I can get the username. This Postgre also, I can get the password. $con. What do you mean by $con? CONN. What it does, it gives me new PDO. What is PDO? What is PDO? Okay, right. I am creating a new event there, a new database there. And what objects I want? What objects I want? Server name, username, password. Okay, so I am connecting my con to a new database object, and this database has server name, username, and password. Okay, so the values of all these three will be stored in the connection variable because I have used $con, that is my variable, and in that variable I am writing all these things and I've used equal to sign. That means it is the assignment operator. Now, if bracket is set, okay, is set is a default function wherein I am setting certain values, $post submit. Okay, $post is my variable, and in this variable I have array. In this array, I am submitting the data what the user is giving me. Okay, or he is entering it. Now, what data he's entering is his name, his gender. Okay, so I got his name, $post, getting the name. Here, $post getting the gender because it is having multiple values, so I cannot store it in a variable, but I require an array to store many variables, right? Many values. So I'm storing name and gender. Then $SQL. What is there for SQL? What statement he needs to execute? Insert into student. Okay. So I want to enter new student's details. Okay. So I will click on insert into student, name, gender, values. Which value I want, I can get that particular values here. Okay. So insert into student name comma gender. This is my student table, right? But what I need to store in name, $dollar name. What I need to store in gender, $dollar gender, and this I am writing in double quotes. Why I am giving double quotes is because these are the values. These are not for calculating. These are not numbers, but these are the static values what we need to follow. Then once I have entered, once I connected to my table and my form, then I will be giving $connection and Excel $SQL. Okay, execute this statement. Which statement? Dollar up or down? Down. Excel $SQL. Now, what is there in $SQL is this insert into statement, right? So once my connection is done, what is to be executed? I need to execute the admission form. And from that admission form, you can get the link for inserting new values in the table. Echo new record created successfully. Right? Understood? If you can see, certain variables, certain values, certain arrays, okay, those I can insert. Now this program just takes name and gender, but if you want some other fields to be entered, then you need to create more columns and you need to name them. Then you can come on to SQL statement and then enter name, gender, marks, address, whichever fields you want, you can enter in this particular table. Okay. What is next? See, the output. How is the output? Student admission form. This was in H1. First name. I have a text box, and in this placeholder, it's written enter your name. Second, gender. And this gender is having three options. And can you see the circle buttons? Right? These are radio buttons, and I can opt for any one option. If it is courses, I can opt for all the courses, but this is not a case of course, but here I can only opt for one option only, either male, female, or others. In above example, PHP data object class. What is PDO? PHP data object class. Okay, this helps us to connect PHP code with almost any database users. With the help of PDO, I can connect to any other objects, right? It doesn't account for database specific syntax, and one can switch database simply by switching the connection string in many instances. Right? Previously, I had given $SQL. If I change that string, all my data will be changed, and I can get new string, new data with the help of the objects, right? These objects are storing all the values, storing all the data, and then passing on to the database server. Okay. It provides database access layer, providing a uniform method to access multiple database. What is it providing me? Access layer. Okay, so it provides different layers. Now there are certain protection layers, there are certain access layers, there are certain layers which are not there for, not meant for students. They are administrative levels. Okay, so different layers for different forms. So you can have which layer you want, you can use that layer and write the code. Now, how to create a database or database connection object? How can you do that with the help of $con and new? New keyword tells me that this connection is a new connection and it is using PDO object. And what is there in the bracket is first is my server name, username, and password. Okay. In our example, we connect PHP with PostgreSQL server. The above statement creates connectivity object, that is $con. These three are very important keys, important statements with three parameters, concatenation with three parameters as shown below. Excuse me. So I have first parameter, server host name or IP address and database name. Okay. Second, database username. Third, database password. So I am using these three parameters for getting the connection. First is server name or IP address. Second is database username. Third is database password. Okay. Next we have is SQL and its execution. How does the SQL commands execute? How am I going to insert new fields, new data into my table? So I can do that with the help of insert into. What I can do? Insert into student. This is my table name. And what is there in the table? Name and gender. Right? So these are the values, name and gender, which are there as my heading for my table. Now, values, if I want to take, how am I going to take? double quotes, dot, s name, dot, and double quotes. This is the way I can get the username, and this dollar gender, if I write, then I'll get the gender, okay, what he is selecting. The above statement creates SQL string to insert values in the table named students. Right? In the table, if I want to store some values, I can do that with the help of my connection. Now, next is dollar connection. How am I going to write that dollar connection? Can you see a dash and greater than sign? Right? That is an associative sign. And then dollar $con is dealing with execution of SQL, right? So if I want to execute, I can give execute SQL, and this connection will be passed on to the dollar $con. In the above statement, this sign, can you see this sign is used to execute SQL statements using $con, dollar $con variable as connectivity object. Okay. Is set method in PHP is used to check whether variables have is set method is used is in PHP is used to check whether variable has values or not, and this helps us to know if the button is clicked or not, right? I can change the values, I can change the buttons, and I can get the is set method. The above program is used to insert data from the user into the database, right? Whatever the user is typing in the form will be stored in the database. Now let us understand how to fetch the data. We understood how to insert the data. Now how to fetch the data from database and display as a web page. Okay. So the next program uses PDO exception. PDO exceptions are used to handle errors. What errors you get, because they have previously only told the students what they are supposed to write, correct? So when the sequence is handled, when the data is handled, it shouldn't be that the data type for this is different and the data type for the other is different. Okay, so I can give that. Now, what do you mean by handling errors? Which means anything you do with the PDO should be wrapped into try or catch block. Now, this try and catch blocks are two different options. Try and catch the error, whichever error you want, you can catch that error and try different modes, try different commands, different values, and see that the program is running properly. The part of the code which may be enormous can be put into try. Okay, because I need to try it. I am not confirmly telling that this is the codes and it should run, but no, we need to go for try and catch. The part of the code which may be erroneous can be put in try. So I think this will work or no, then that codes will be put into try block, and the codes to handle the error can be put in catch block. Okay, wherein he needs to handle the code that has to be there in the catch block. And the ones which are error, I feel like it is an error somewhere, so I can put it in the try block. PDO exception class is used to throw errors due to database connectivity. Before I connect the database and I try these, then what it does, it will show me the errors because the connection is not done. I have given everything, written everything, but connection is not done. Okay, so $E is the object of video, and using get method, we can print the error message for database connectivity. Okay, so what I can do is whichever is the error, I can just modify one option and I see all the error reports, all the error messages, which what is wrong in my program will be shown. Okay, then SQL query using any programming language, whereas fetch all method is used to set all records from the given table and store in $result variables. Now, what does this person has to do if he was there in that particular table? Okay, but now he needs to change. Yes, he can do. He can give the connection as null. He can give certain other corrections. He can give the connections for the mobile and all those things. Okay, we have MySQL as example and MAL-IADD. Okay, you have different you have Oracle, you have PostgreSQL, right? So different databases are there. Access is also a kind of database wherein we can store many different types of data. Okay, so if we go through 5.18, how is the program written? How was the logic given? Okay, we'll go through it. First, doc type HTML, HTML body, H1, display data. So can you see the output also here? I start my PHP tag here in body section. So what I give here is $server name equal to pgsql host dash localhost.